You are now listening to the Minority Trailblazer podcast. Let the story begin.
One time for the lovers, two times for the ladies, three times for the brothers, four times for the babies. Do you love her? 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 One time for the lovers, two times for the ladies, three times for the brothers, four times for the babies. Do you love her? 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 Brown skin, love her brown skin, love her brown. Brown skin, love her brown skin, love her brown. She my brown skin, love her brown skin, love her brown. She my brown skin, love her brown skin. Hold me down.
Welcome to the Minority Trailblazer podcast, and I'm your host, Greg Iot, the culture change agent. On this show, we interview young, successful minorities in a variety of fields to educate, empower, and inspire our current and future generation leaders. And today, of course, man, we got a show for you, man. We got a show for you. And I think what's really important and what's exciting about this show, you look at my shirt, you see God got us. And the crazy thing is we're connected even spiritually in the sense, man, like we of course we worship the same God, man.
Same God.
Shoot, how do we connect? Because we've been connected on Facebook for a while.
We've been connected for a while, and then I started seeing that we have similar spiritual connections.
Yeah.
And you reached out, man, and it took off from there.
Yeah, man. So I'm excited to I'm gonna let this brother introduce himself, man, because I've been introducing people all day. So I'm gonna let him do his thing, and we just gonna vibe, man. Because man, that's the only thing we really can do, because right now in the culture and society, there's a lot of stuff's going on.
Right.
I mean, you woke up, early this week, you see what's going on in Wisconsin. Like, NBA, they gonna cut it out. Then tomorrow, we chilling after a long day. We sitting there, I'm eating dinner with, my boy Daryl, and shout out to Ariel Perry, man. Dope photographer. Oh my gosh, phenomenal. And I'm sitting here, Chadwick Boseman died. I said, hold up, what?
Yeah, right. Yeah, walk me out my sleep, man. It's crazy. Yeah.
And then you wake up, you gotta do this podcast, it's become normal, the stuff was happening in the world. If you ever sat back, you have a wife and a beautiful daughter, 5 years old, and you just sat back and during this whole pandemic and see like, what is God doing? Like, what is going on? Have you questioned stuff? Like, what?
Yeah, man, it's heavy, bro. It's heavy. And one thing that we've appreciated about our faith is it's reflective too.
Yeah.
And I told my wife this morning, I'm like, look, this is just another reminder of that we just need to live every day to the fullest, right?
Yeah.
That you gotta put all your chips on the table because, life is yet but a vapor, brother. Right?
It really is. Like, I think it's challenging a lot of Christians, a lot of believers, whatever you believe in.
Yeah.
To really tap into that belief, your metal is getting tested.
All day.
Like, now whatever, all this stuff, all these quotes you had all these years, all these scriptures, all these faith over this, all these t-shirts y'all wearing.
Can you live it?
It is now, because now if not, then.
Yeah. It's all for naught, man. It's all for naught, bro.
So can you share with the audience, man, who you are and just kind of give your own intro, and then we're going to jump right in, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name is Bobby Robinson. I am
the Bobby Robinson.
I'm a business and intellectual property attorney, so I help 6- and 7-figure influencers protect their brands so that they can live the life that they choose to live. I've also founded a number of different companies. So I have a legal technology company, IntelliDoc. We do contract and workflow automation for corporate legal departments. I also have a legal staffing business where we place, all types of attorneys and staff at various organizations. So, man, very passionate about entrepreneurship, wife, daughter. We're originally from South Florida. Made that connection.
Yeah.
I'm in Fort Lauderdale. So really excited, man, just to be here with you, brother.
Yeah, man. And I think what's critical about this season of the show, man, season of the podcast rather, is I'm intentionally reaching back. Luckily, I don't got to reach too far back. It ain't like you're 80 years old. You feel me though? Like, it sounds crazy. Like, dang, like, for real. Like, but seriously, like.
Yeah, don't let the gray hair fool you,
like, I've been seeing a lot of gray. I've been seeing homies at like 28 with full gray. I'll be like, bruh.
Yeah.
But.
It's hard out here.
Yeah. But really, like, this season, I really want to be intentional about really bridging the gap.
Yeah.
In a sense. And the gap is not huge, like 30 to 80, but even this gaps, micro gaps, 25 to 30, 30 to 35, 35 to 40.
Yeah.
The different experiences. You can tell by your body different experiences.
All day.
Your conversation different experiences. Hopefully your bank account different experiences. And the challenges, different experiences as well. So this season we're really focused on really just building bridges and having multi-layer conversation, because in the day when this culture was going on in life, man, is we have to really get back to community. And we've been saying that.
Yeah, because I think it's moments that we're in right now that we are reminded that we need each other, right? Because and typically the culture says hustle, hustle, hustle. I'm gonna get mine, you get yours. But that's proven to be counterproductive. Now, when I gotta come back and I need to help you and we need to help each other, it's, I've been trying to help you all this time, right? But you've been focused on doing you, right? So community at this moment in time, I think is critical more than ever.
What do you think has been the most challenging and the the biggest blessing in regards to this pandemic and what's going on in race relations in general?
I think generally it just reminds you of what really matters, right? I think when things tend to slow down, there's some clarity. I know for me that it's been clarifying that some relationships I didn't need, some activity I was doing, it wasn't productive or helping me go to the next level. So I don't think but for this pandemic that I would have had that opportunity to really just sit back and reflect on, am I really moving in the right direction? Do I really need these relationships? Have they been beneficial to me? Are they just transactional relationships? Are they my brothers? So I really had an opportunity to say, okay, these aren't really helpful for me. And it's added a ton of value, right? So I think, regardless of whether it be just the racial piece, the economic piece, or whatever it is, I think in each of those respective buckets, you can find some clarity in terms of where we are right now.
So could you share with our audience, man, a quote or a mantra you live by, and then, share a specific story about how you apply it?
Yeah, I feel like, so we all know Robert Smith.
Yeah.
Gave a ton of money from Morehouse, and he has this quote about, just bringing your whole self. And I think for me, growing up in the hood, basically, and where I am today and how I connect with so many other people, I be true to myself to ensure that I bring my whole self to whatever conversation we're having, right? And that has proven very beneficial to me because we were just talking about the whole marketing piece, right? And how you show up. And as a Black attorney, we only make up 5% of the whole profession, right? I don't even know what the stat is. It's probably a 0.00 something for those of us that do intellectual property, right? Yeah. So it's little to nothing.
A niche of a niche,
right? So how do you show up in a very authentic way, that's still attractive, particularly when it's not a lot of people that look like you? More importantly, people that come from my background, Section 8, food stamps, all of that. How do you bring all that to relate to entrepreneurs and everyone else? So that's always been my secret sauce of bringing my whole self to any conversation, any business that I'm doing, so that people know who I am opposed to my genius that I bring, right? Cause that is part of it. But it's not all of it. So it's like, this is my whole story and this is who you're doing business with. And that to me is what I live by.
So, since we're there, walk us through, man, like Section 8, Florida, and Florida real.
It's real, right?
Like Durham real, DC real, Chicago real. Florida is a different real because it's that realness with that South swag.
Absolutely.
So it's a crazy, and then now, like, hey, intellectual property and Turner, like, it's a lot. It's a huge shift.
It's a shift. It's a mindset shift.
Yeah.
As well, because one of my biggest fears was always slipping back into poverty, right? So I would work so hard out of fear of raising my daughter or any other kids we have in a similar situation. Cause you always want your kids to do better, right?
Yeah.
You're right. It's different. I didn't know no better. I didn't know we were poor cause everybody around us was in the same situation. It wasn't until I got older and got exposed that I realized that, education is important, or cause back then it's just, well, graduate high school, you've done your part.
Yeah.
But I knew I had to go to the next level because that was kind of the standard or at least the base of where people wanted us to be. So first in my family to go to college, first in my family to get my MBA, first in my family to get my JD. Right. So it's a lot of firsts. And just really, man, just trying to break some generational curses, man, when it comes to how our family was brought up. Right. So that's important to me.
So where did you get your undergrad, MBA, and JD from?
Yeah. So I went to a very small private school in South Florida. It was like Everest University. Right. Cause what was interesting to me is I worked through, man, I started working when I was 14, bro. Like it was like, I remember one summer, my 8th grade summer, I worked 2 jobs. It was like a job, it was like a beta program or something of that nature. I was a camp counselor at a middle school. So I'm basically a peer of my peers. Yeah. And bro, I was bagging groceries at Winn-Dixie, right? So 7 days a week, I was working that full summer. And that work ethic stayed with me. So when it came time to go, I could have went to any school, but I felt like I needed to stay closer to home to help my mom. And so that's what I did. Yeah. And so, you know, working hard is just something that's all I know. Yeah. Right.
And then you went to MBA where?
Same. So I rolled straight through Everest, went straight to MBA, and then I went to Charlotte Law for my JD.
Charlotte Law. Okay. So why you go from MBA? Why JD? Why did it get into law?
Everybody that I met was like, bro, you write really well. You think analytically, like you would be a great attorney. And I was trying to initially I wanted to make myself more marketable. Because I was already, you know, working with athletes and I was helping them with their foundations and I was doing a whole bunch of other stuff. And so it just naturally just kind of made sense. And quite frankly, when I went to law school, I wasn't going to practice law. Again, I just wanted it to be more marketable. And everyone that I met, all my counselors and advisors, they're like, you'd be crazy not to sit for the bar. And they were like, look, even if you don't practice, just get your license. And I did. I sat for the bar, passed it the first time. And it was one of the best decisions I made.
And you're making all this stuff sound real easy. Like, cause I know people that, I've done a whole podcast about passing the bar before. I've done a whole podcast about being an agent or working with athletes and et cetera. So I like how you're trying to like smooth over it. Like this is norm in place. Like that's it doesn't normally happen. So kind of break down specifically, like, I know we're going to get to what you do today. Yeah. But what, as when you, during this time while you're growing, getting degrees, what were you doing?
Yeah, man, I was, some of it was, working a 9 to 5 and I always had side hustles, right? So I worked in local government. I did corporate. Again, side hustles. I had consulting businesses. I would help people write business plans. I would do.
How do people find out about you? Just
in my MBA program. And then my professors who worked at big corporations would send other people to me. And that was like something I made a lot of money just writing business plans. And then, one of my mentors connected me to somebody who was playing with the Dolphins. And then I started doing a bunch of their foundations and then they started telling their friends. So that's kind of how it all just.
What's the secret sauce behind really like, and I think I kind of know where it is, but what would you say is a couple ingredients rather? Cause not just one thing, secret sauce of, that kind of explosion, be able to kind of start something and then clients, you just kind of just roll over and now it's like, wow.
Yeah. I lead with my work product, right? And I think we all have a unique skill set that other people will pay you to do. Right. And so I always lean into that. Right. So I always find out and know, like, I know you can't do that. So let me add value because the first few I just did on GP. I just did it. Like I knew how to do it. I learned how to file. I've never filed a nonprofit application. I was watching videos, reading books and I figured it out. And once I did that, I just kept going through the process. So it's just finding where I can add value, how I can help them, and then knowing my audience because, you know, athletes generally don't trust people because they've been taken advantage of or they think you want something from them. And that same thing with entertainers and others, right? So I always make sure that I'm non-threatening. I add value. They get to know me, build a relationship, and then it takes on from there, right? So I think you just gotta know your audience, and then I think the rest kind of will work itself out.
And how has your knowledge of your value shifted and grown as your career has grown? Because I know it's in regards to monetarily. Like,
yeah, I charge, right? So, for me, if I do something for you for free, it's because I choose to. It's not because I have to. And I think over time, just experience, right? Experience to me, started out practicing law at $250 an hour, and now you're over $500 an hour, right? So it really, and I've only been doing this for 5 years. So, and then you go in different places and it's like, oh, you're not charging enough.
And then you like, this is stretched already.
I'm already thinking I'm getting over, or you think you're, really overcharging, but some people are like, nah, bro, you ain't charging enough. And so it's like, okay, I gotta raise the prices. So.
And the reason why I asked that, though, because a lot of our listeners and audience, some of them, are corporate thugging.
Yeah. I like that term. Man.
Yeah, I like that term, but we live in a PC culture right now, so some people will even like that. Like, why does the corporate thugging blah blah?
Yeah. I get where you're going with.
And then
now.
Some are entrepreneurs, but then there's a notion right now, specifically with millennials, that I start my business, I need to charge this X amount of rate, and it's like, hold up. Like, so, and I always want to put context behind that, because there are certain people that jump in that redistributed their skill sets from their corporate roles, and they can hit at a certain point.
Yeah.
But there's people that's just really starting their business right now and have this, what do you call it? What do you call it when you already think you deserve something? Entitlement. And it's like, hold up, like even my speaking stuff, I started off, and everybody don't gotta go the same route, of course, but I started off $50 for an hour, $100 per hour, like free, $350 for a whole day. Like, and then now we're in a point we can argue and demand that.
Yeah.
But still, it's like I see people jumping off the ship, and I'm like, I don't know if people don't necessarily accuracy value, or, and it's really weird because it can be very toxic, because now they get angry when they're not hitting certain rates and try to blast people. I don't know.
I think it's monkey see, monkey do. This is what X person did, and apparently they're successful, so that's the route I have to take. Everybody path to success, and it just looks different, right? And it's, for me, till this day, I still do stuff for free.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just part of the game in terms of, if it's something I don't know, and you trust me to do it, I'll do it just for the experience, and I'll do it for free. Right? So when that opportunity comes around again, I can charge for it now because I know what I'm doing. And so that's always just been my general philosophy. I never really, understood why someone would feel, I get it. Like, you need to make money. I get that part. And most businesses are net negative.
Yeah. To be honest.
So you're already going to be net negative, right? In my opinion. And some people, depending on the business, that's not the case for everyone, but in most cases, that's the case. So
they suggest.
Yeah. So for me, it's get the experience, figure out what your customers want. A lot of folks don't do the beta testing. They don't, get enough testimonials or reviews to social proof their brand and things of that nature, because that helps you justify your credibility, you justify your value when other people can attest to what you've done for them. They do the selling for you, and then you just close the deal with your pricing.
So, question, do you ever sometimes think, man, like, your life has changed on a high level so much from where it was back in the day?
Yeah.
That, man, like, have I grown too far from it? Like, am I still a real dude? Cause this notion of a real person.
I'm gonna be honest, bro. Like, I'm a black partner at a big firm. And when I came in, I've never dealt with imposter syndrome. I didn't even know what it was. But you're right. Being 37, under 40, in a position that I'm in, and it's like, how did you get here? But granted, I know all the work that I've done, but it still doesn't stop me from thinking, like, do I doubt myself? Can I do this? Things of that nature. Of course, you'll figure it out and you'll pull yourself together. But I've had moments where I had to figure out, like, okay, bro, pull it together. Like, look at your sheet. Look at your accomplishments. Look at what you've done. You just built a 7-figure business. You've done this. You've done that. So then, like, you can do this. Right. So absolutely, I still have to, but that goes back to when I'm talking to my family back home or talking to any of my old friends. Nobody really will let me forget where I come from. Right. And I won't let myself forget where I come from. And it's important for me to even let my daughter know, like, hey, this is normal. This is normal for you, but this is not, this is how we grew up. So.
Did your wife grow up in the same scenario?
No. Opposite. So 2-parent household.
You did that.
Yeah,
okay, you crossed over. Okay, you,
so you know how that, so that, you know, that's always interesting too.
Up.
You know, we married up.
We say up. Of course, everybody, we're not saying that somebody's low, but you get it. Don't get
Yeah. But yeah, 2-parent household, her being the only child at some point in time. And so her experiences growing up are completely different.
How'd y'all meet?
Mine. High school. Went to the same high school together. We were about 2 years apart.
This is like a freak. What is it? What's the New York love story? What's the joint in Harlem? I forgot, like the different sides of the track.
It's crazy, man. And I think those experiences add a ton of value to our relationship. But even more importantly, when I'm having discussions with my daughter about just things that she may not necessarily understand, that are even educational for my wife, because, you know, I grew up without my father. And so I, you know, sometimes I overlove on my daughter to compensate for things that I didn't have, right? And so at some point, my wife didn't completely understand that, right? And over time, there's this level of appreciation of why you do what you do. And you'll be amazed at how much of that is stemmed from your childhood.
It's scary, man, that I would say out of all the interviews I've done, I really got to do some data on it. I think over 80% of the males that I've had on the podcast had no father.
Yeah.
And it's scary.
Yeah, it's scary, man.
Like literally, like George doing phenomenal.
Yeah.
Single parent household.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Khalil, but I mean, I can go down, my LB Brandon Vic doing phenomenal. Taking executive PhD, like freaking 31. Yeah. No father. And I was like, yo, what? Like, it's just, it's crazy to me.
I take my hat off to my mother. I had great, strong women in my family, but I also had dudes in the community that saw the value in me. The Urban Leagues, NAACPs, like, bro, you gonna go to this program or you gonna go do this. And that's why I started working so early. So, you know, I was good athletically, but I just knew my mom needed help financially. So, bro, I was paying bills at an early age, man. You know, just, and that just sticks with you.
Where do you get your drive from and that curiosity and that intellectual? Like, where did it stem from?
I think I hate to say it, I think that fear, man, of just knowing where we grew up from and not seeing a lot of people, not doctors, lawyers, people of professional success. I saw everything else, drug dealers, this, that, and the third. So I knew what that looked like. Yeah. But I wanted, what did the other side look like? And I don't
Why
know,
didn't you want what that looked like though?
Cause that my dad, right? He was on death row, right? So I knew I wasn't going down that path, right? And so I knew that it had to be another route, right? And so yeah, man, that scared the you know what out of me. So I was like, bro, now we gonna go this way.
Yeah. So, and if you think about your career, like from what you dreamed of as a kid, like, what did it feel like when you first started really attaining things that you really thought was really out of scope? Like you really couldn't ascertain.
It never really was out of scope for me.
Okay.
Like, I always knew that I would be successful. And when I started to acquire stuff, it's like when you do it, it's like, okay, that was cool. Like, what's next? You do it? All right. That's cool too. Like, well, what's next? So it's always the what's next. But then more importantly, it goes back to community, like who else I can help. And I'm always big. So I have a soft spot for kids who grew up just like me. So I'm always, you know, sending stuff to various kids. My wife and I brought in a young man in our house for a short while who was in transition and having some issues. And that was fulfilling because he didn't have anybody in his life, right? So always figuring out, this stuff can be, again, you have it today, it can be gone today. So what good can you do with it?
And let's talk about, since we in this space, man, let's talk about what you see in your spiritual growth, as opposed to growing up.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna layer this question and you can now just from growing up to then now having a wife, the kid, and now leading a family. Because there's people that wife with kids that don't lead. So kind of just walk us through that whole journey. I know that's a big question.
Yeah, it's a big question because interestingly, we didn't grow up quote unquote religious.
Okay.
Right. My mom, she was too busy trying to feed 5 kids.
Yeah.
And so,
that's just the
that's
really
the
real.
practical side of it. And we didn't really get introduced to church. I was probably a preteen. And in fact, it was a white church that was up the street. They would come pick us up and all of that. And that was
resources,
so that was sort of my introduction to church. When I met my wife, she grew up in the Church of Christ. So I grew up Baptist, and then I got introduced to the Church of Christ. And quite frankly, I thought I knew God, but it was very surface.
Yeah.
When I met my wife, like, she had bounds of notes from church and, dad was a deacon in the church and things of that nature. And I'm like, and we were dating long distance at one point in time. And, it wasn't until I had to start praying publicly that I knew that I needed to take my faith to another level. Cause I would pray privately, these deep, strong prayers. But when I had to vocalize that publicly, I would clam up. And lo and behold, one thing people didn't know about me is, I'm very somewhat introverted, right? So for me, some of my friends, they joke and call me the silent assassin. Like, bro, he quiet, but you gotta watch him.
Yeah.
He quiet, you gotta watch him.
They thinking.
They just loud.
Quiet.
They just loud. We're sitting back, thinking, observing, watching who got the power, who don't, so really just trying to scan the room. And that's something I've done all my life. But to your point, leading, it took me some time to grow into that role. And as men, black men, that's not a comfortable place to be, because you don't automatically just show up there. It took time. And I'm glad that God gave me the grace and space to get there.
So what would you say? Cause I know we're all over the place, but that's how we do it. I just go with the energy, man. And I think that, one thing I want to talk through, because man, you're at 37, a guy of high influence in certain spaces. And how do you balance, like, how do you balance the marriage and your ambition, your drive to still, like, cause there's more levels. Yeah. And you're still trying to drive, but why do you drive? Like, why do you drive so hard? Outside, of course, when it's just the money thing, but at a certain point, like, why not just coast and just focus on other things?
It's just not in my personality. It's just how I'm wired. But, I think, man, I haven't always done a good job of taking care of myself, my mental health or anything of that nature. So over the past few years, I've gotten better with doing that, right? Meditation and, creating boundaries, right? Because when you're young and you hustling, you chasing a whole lot, you may compromise yourself trying to get to that next thing. And so just a lot of lessons learned, man, that God has just over time revealed to me that, if you got to try too hard for that ain't for you, right? But your ambition will continue to cause you to do that. And it's just experience and wisdom over time to just pull back and go in the right direction.
How do you create those boundaries though? Like, what does a boundary look like? Let's be practical and tactical. Like, what does a boundary look like for you now?
For me, anything that just robs me of my peace, bro. Anything that just doesn't sit right with me, I can't let myself get there. And so oftentimes I'll disengage, or I'll go in a different direction, or I'll create those boundaries. But before, even if my peace was disturbed, I would still go for it if I knew I can get a client, or if I knew I could get whatever. You get but your peace is disturbed, and I've come to appreciate that more than I did a few years ago.
Let's have a component where this is, we usually do it at the beginning of the show to draw the context. I think you already have, but what would you say some of your biggest accomplishments? This opportunity, I really want to hear, like, this is you on the pole. When people read the long bio, you like, bro, like, for real? I'm about to talk you then, bro.
Man, I think it's my daughter, bro. Like I said, not having my dad around, my mom, again, doing her best to raise us. She's a big accomplishment for me, because I think it's, when I see her, it's a reflection of how much I've grown and, the patience, that I have with her that either my mom or others didn't have, and how we, have conversations, and it's more of a, do something, as I tell you to, opposed to,
not a conversation.
It ain't a conversation, right? I'm the parent, you the child sort of situation. So she is, and she keeps me motivated, man, and she encourages me. Even in the wake of all this racial stuff, man, she asks, Daddy, why are they hurting black people? And, why are they doing this and that to black people? And she almost had me tearing up. She's like, well, I don't want you to go to jail. I don't want you to get, in trouble. And it's just her awareness of what's happening. But I think it's the environment that we created for her just to express herself and what she does. So I'm proud of that.
So let's talk into, how did you get into Iot and Intellectual Property, and what does that really mean?
Yeah, man, it's just that. Like this podcast, this your IP, right? This your genius right here on display. And people need to protect it. Google, I think I checked their trademarks are worth like 600 million or some crazy in terms of how much they bring in every year. So there are different forms of IP. You got trademarks, copyrights, patents, trade secrets, right of publicity, which a lot of student athletes are really concerned about, NIL, right of publicity. And some of them you can have more than one, right? So you can have a trademark and a copyright. So, to me, if you don't protect it, your competition can come in and basically take advantage of all the work that you've done, right? So,
legally. Why is it set up like that? How can, you could build something all day, you didn't copyright, you didn't do something, and they could just say, oh, mine now.
Well, it's up to you. If you create it, you gotta protect it. And it's important that, obviously you gotta know when and what to protect. There are some instances where it's not worth investing the money if it's not something that, you intend to commercialize. But you're absolutely right. But it's the conversation of you calling me to say, hey, this is what I'm working on. At what point should I be thinking about these things? And sometimes it's like, you should have thought about that yesterday before you launched it. Or it's, let's evaluate what your plans are, and then we can come up with a strategy on how we're going to approach protecting your IP. So it really just depends on the brand and what you're trying to do. And that's why I feel like my entrepreneurial background helps my clients, right? Because you got a lot of lawyers who just went to law school and can't tell you nothing about running a business. They've never had to grow a business. And so I blend business and legal very well together. And I think God has really uniquely positioned me to do that, because I feel like to your point, I look back on the days of helping athletes. I wasn't a lawyer yet, but I was working on my MBA. And I feel like all of that experience and talking to these guys and other, entertainers and others, it helped me really understand how do folks think that are really visionaries and about, obtaining their goals. How do they think and allow me to sort of help them execute on that?
What would you say, you don't have to name them, what would you say is some stories or a couple key things that you've gotten working with the clients that, from a worldly perspective, have really attained certain levels that they really there? Like, what are some things, some core things, some traits or things that you've observed during those times and those conversations that could probably benefit our audience?
I think it's diversification of thought and business, right? Diversification of thought in that, you see things for what they are, but you also see them for what they can be. Oftentimes, most people will see it for what it is and stop. Right? So when I read the law, I read it for what it says, but I also read it for what it doesn't say. Right? And I think a lot of times, most entrepreneurs don't do that, right? They see it for what it is, and then they try to figure out some other way. But diversification of thought. The second thing is truly diversification of revenue streams, right? I don't think that everything that you're doing, if one dries up, you gotta have other spigots that's gonna flow. And you don't have to own 100% of it. And that's one other thing I learned too, is like, they'll take 10% of $1 million+ business, but some people won't do it because they don't own it all. And so if I had a 10% in 20 businesses and they all worth $1 billion, that's a different sort of approach to how you do business. And so I think we just have to think about what our goals are and what ways can we get there. I always look at just a toolbox. You got all this stuff in the toolbox, but what do we need to pull out to help you get where you're trying to go?
I guess some of that is difficult because, I mean, even that, it's like we live in it. Sometimes you grow up and it's like some people can't even honor giving $20 back, right? And then you doing a equity partnership. You're like, well, if I get 10%, when do I get the bread? How do I know you're going to get it? Like you get it round out because literally sometimes you see, oh, they just got an $80 million of funding and well, equity until they actually go public. Did that even confer? Like you just in the wind and in the black culture, you like, what does that mean? Like, oh, I said somebody, hey, you help co-produce this podcast, etc. I give you 10% equity. What the hell that mean?
Yeah. How do you convert that? Yeah. I think we kind of talked about it a little bit. First, before I even answer that, I always tell people, look, don't invest it if you can't stand to lose it. Right? Like if you can't stand to lose it, don't invest it. But if you can, make sure you protect it via documentation, right? How do you secure the equity? There's certain provisions in an equity deal that when you do get funding, that you drag along with everybody else. So you go along, and so if you cash out, I cash out. So oftentimes, if you don't have the appropriate provisions, you're just sitting on somebody's stock cash, basically. And while it's worth something on paper, it's worthless to you because you can't liquidate it. And so you got to figure out and make sure you have somebody review those documents to say like, look, if they raise $100 million, like, how can I cash out? Right? Or you may not want to cash out because the value gonna go up, right? That means your stock is gonna go up. So it's just having the right conversations.
How are you, for what you can share, how are you diversified now as far as the things that you work on and educate the audience? What all do you work on? Like, 'cause I know you wear a lot of hats.
I do, man. So I'm a partner at a law firm. So, you know.
And what does that really mean for non-legal people? Like,
yeah. So, I mean, the business it's an LLC firm. So I'm a member. So members are owners. And in the legal profession, it's a partner. So it's a more senior person in the firm. We're really tasked with, you know, bringing in the business, really. And so right underneath us are associates. And then below them are paralegals or legal assistants, basically. So for me, I'm really just a rainmaker. So I go out, I network, I bring in business.
The introvert.
It's just, you know, it's one of those things where I've just gotten good at connecting with people. And then they sense my genuineness and me being authentic, and it works because people do business with those they know, like, and trust, right? And so got the law firm. I have my legal technology company, the legal staffing business, and I do invest in other companies. Like a year ago, I did like a property management company, and I have some other opportunities that I'm looking at. So it really just depends.
How do you value a good investment as opposed to a bad investment in general?
I think it's just something that, for me personally, it's just, apart from proving that it works, you can make money and all that. Like, am I passionate about it? Like, can I get behind it? Can I get excited about it? And if I can, then I'm cool with figuring out how we can make something happen.
And from your knowledge and skill set, and for our audiences that are creating content, let's say talking the media space or content development, which is hot right now, Netflix, a lot of people buying up content, crazy podcasts. There's a lot going on. But also too, that's on the high level. But on the low level, there's a lot of content creators that are not licensed and stuff. There's a lot of, you just don't know what you don't know. So what advice would you give for the up and coming creatives and the current creatives as far as dealing with content, dealing with creation? Because there's a lot at stake, but also too there's a lot of just you don't know.
I think, man, in this age that we're in, we can't claim that we don't know. Like, you got to put in the work. Assuming you put in the work. You got to talk to people like me. right? So, if you're creating content, the rule of thumb is whoever creates it owns it, right? So if you create it, you own it. Now, with copyrights, the moment you create it, like this video, when it's done, it's copyrighted, right? When you take photos, it's copyrighted. But what a lot of people don't do is they don't take the next step of registering it, right? It's hard to license what you don't own, right? So it's just like this real estate. IP is just like real estate. When you own the dirt, you own the building, you can decide who come and go. Right? So if you have IP, you can decide who licensed and who shouldn't, right? But you have to take the steps to protect it. And if you don't, then again, you gotta come to me and we gotta issue a cease and desist letter to get it all squashed and all that. But there's so many opportunities. To your point, I can't tell you, I got a lot of clients who are producing content, even smaller influencers, and big brands are asking about their videos or their photos. And they're coming to me like, okay, now what do I do? Right? And then we walk them through the process. And most brands and companies are expecting you to have legal counsel. Otherwise, the deal is going to be one-sided.
Yeah, period.
Because I tell clients all the time, brands have 100 lawyers for a reason. Those 100 lawyers represent that brand. They don't represent you. And so your best interest isn't going to be at hand when it comes to that deal, right? So all their contracts are drafted to protect the brand, not you. And that's why it's important to pull somebody like me in to balance that out for you.
What do you see the most in regards to working with different clients in different space? Let me retract that. What are some of the biggest gaps that you see, and when you just outside looking in, right? So you're just looking at stuff, and specifically entertainers and influencers, especially online now, because the influencers, they're getting a lot of clout. There's a lot of stuff. A
lot of clout right now.
You know, I mean, I personally have friends that, I mean, after I get off this thing, I need to contact because I know that they're high level, but something in my spirit, I just talk to them, I see how much they pay in taxes, all this stuff. I'm like, yo, they ain't, people around you, I'm like, cause I want them to keep winning. But like, what if stuff goes left and I'm like, and there's probably a lot of them out there like that, that are just getting money, they're getting checks now.
They're getting big checks.
But they could probably be even getting bigger and more strategic stuff if they kind of oriented stuff a different way.
You're absolutely right. So I had that, like right now, I got a pretty big influencer out of Atlanta. And before she came to me, she wasn't charging enough.
As far as for just in general, whatever
just
she
in
did?
general, she wasn't charging enough. And then her exclusivity periods were too long, meaning a lot of these brands want you to be exclusive to them and not obviously co-brand or do something with their competition. But so you're charging a little bit of money and your exclusivity period is too long. It needs to be commensurate, right? They need to correlate. Otherwise you're losing money because you're locked in with them for too long. So having to renegotiate a lot of those things, they don't really understand like what the exclusivity period means and how it affects other checks. It's not just this check that I'm concerned about. It's all the other checks that I'm worried about. And so it is educating them more broadly because especially if they're rising influencers, they just excited to get a check. But we got to start thinking more broadly about it's just not this campaign. It's about all the other campaigns to follow. And we need to have a system and a process of how we negotiate these things.
Cause it's very hard. Okay. It's very hard when you look at things and you're like, even for myself last year, we did some work with a big tech company. And I mean, shoot, I think I told you about it where I went, your first time working with a big brand is you giving out every blueprint. Like I'm looking at, I looked back at my email yesterday. I said, here's the game plan. I literally wrote down a whole 1-page game plan on how to do everything.
No, we ain't
I got $5,000. That's it. I got $5,000 per event. And then in my head, I was like, well, $5,000, it's an hour. I was like, hold up. I coordinated the event. I found the contractors. I dictated the pace. I got resumes. I did all this other stuff. And I'm like, bruh. What?
And that's important because there's so many, that's a pricing strategy, right? So a lot of people will just say, oh, this is my hourly rate and that's what they charge. But you got administrative time, you got travel time, you got all these other expenses that are built into your ability to execute on that service. You got to capture that. Otherwise, you still got to pay it.
Bruh. It's just kind of ridiculous. I'm looking at like literally, I know companies that for even from a one experiential position, the resumes that they got from top quality candidates, that was 50, 100. That's a 6. And I'm like, I got filed like, and they had audacity. We had to go back and forth about, I said, bro, about the, and I know y'all was BS because y'all swiped the credit card to do it. Yeah, it wasn't even no contract.
They already had the budget for it.
But that's neither here nor there. Yeah. But I learned a valuable lesson. It was 2 years ago. I learned a valuable lesson because it's like, man, it's so easy. Cause like this is, you work hard to get to the place where you can work with these big companies. Yeah. But then when you get there, it's hard when you get used.
Game. It's a different game. You know, they're going to try to squeeze you for as much as they can. Mm-hmm. But you got to know your worth. You got to know your numbers.
Very hard, very hard, very hard. But is it very hard or you just have to talk to the right people?
It's not. To your point about your colleague, you got to surround yourself with the right team. You know, I always tell every entrepreneur they need to have the ABCs of business, right? An attorney, a relationship with a banker, and a CPA, right? Of course, you're going to need other people around you, right? A social media person, an insurance person, or, you know, all that. But that core group is what you're going to need. And I found that to be true, like even on the banker side, a lot of my clients who were trying to get PPP money, they couldn't get it because they ain't had no relationship with their bank.
And I lucked up because I had a young guy, man. He was out in the A, and he was actually a banker that he took time out of his time to process, work through the forms, and I was able to actually get my dad some and everything else. But I mean, if he wouldn't,
it's just those relationships.
That's it. But one thing I did learn, starting off, even with my vision, like, cause I've been in this game for a little while, but just started this year really operating from a technical standpoint in certain ways because I had a fear of the barrier entry to say a lawyer. Like, I mean, I'm 20. We had 100 interns join me in the team. We had parties, all this other stuff. But if you were to say, yo, G, there's a next level to it. But lawyer, I'm like, where am I pay for that? A banker? What? I mean, I'm like, I don't go to the bank. Like, I mean, I do go to the bank, but I don't talk to these people.
Talk to the bank.
And then, like, it's sure all the other stuff is asinine to me. Yeah. So how do we get over that fear to say, hey, like the money fear, the bluntly, cause like you said, a lot of business ain't making money. So you say, you know, ABC's attorney, they're like, attorney, bank, what? Like for real? Like
they just see dollar signs, right? Yeah. But I always tell people, you either pay me now or you're going to pay me. And if you pay me now, it's going to be a little cheaper than you paying me when you're getting sued, right? So I'd rather help you on the front end and we can work through all that other stuff, right? And most times you can't afford not to have an attorney, right? And so it's gonna take a tribe. And we make money and we find, you know, what we want to spend money on.
Yeah. At the end of the day.
At the end of the day.
You look at people and say, you look at the outfit like, hold on,
you got a Louis bag, you riding in a G-Wagon, but you can't afford
You probably definitely see that. Cause you work with people like, hold up.
Yeah, I see it all the time. So it's like, okay. And then they'll come back. How much you want for that? It was $4,000. Now it's $10,000. So here's what it is. No payment plans.
No payment plan. Like, that's the thing though. It'd be like the help you most need is the help you can't afford.
You can't afford.
Like what? Yeah. So where do you meet with that? What do you do for business owners like you need his help?
I do. Like I'm
not talking about you generally.
No, I could talk to for myself and say I'm very generous with my time. And that if I see that you're trying to do the right thing, like I will try to work with you. So, you know, if it is a payment plan, I said it jokingly, but I've done that for clients too, to say, look, we'll stretch this out because I know how important this is to you. So I try to do what I can. That's my contribution.
Nah, that's huge, man. So at the end of the day, like, what do you think the future looks like for you in your business? And cause I know, you're working on some big things over the next couple of months or a year. I don't know when you're rolling out, but like, what's the future look like?
Yeah. So I'm rolling out a new brand, the Influencer Attorney. I think we spoke about that. And it's just my way of niching down. I've realized that I've kind of created a broader brand, but I still get questions about, well, what do you really do? Who do you really help? But I've realized in this season, that God is saying, I need you to be more close to what you're most passionate about. And I'm most passionate about helping millennial influencers. So that's the brand I'm launching in a couple weeks. So really excited about that too.
And what's the So what does your ideal person look like?
Yeah. So generally most of the influencers I work with, they're 6-7 figure earners already. Mm-hmm. Of course, anybody else that's trying to get there, we'll work with them too. But that's generally the group that they're overwhelmed. They got the monetization side, but they struggle on the legal side. Mm-hmm. So they're getting all these contracts in, or they seeing other people stealing their content. And LegalZoom and all these other platforms ain't gonna work for them anymore. Like, they really need a dedicated resource that they can send stuff to, and then that's when I come in.
Do this, I need to go with him. And even probably, you've seen sometimes you can't even sign with certain agents without going to certain lawyers. And you probably seen that kind of in the back end, like you got to do double, like, so how do we as a people start working with each other again? Cause they have one bad experience, one black lawyer, and all of a sudden, I got me an ex-lawyer. You feel me?
Unfortunately, I've not had that experience. And I think it's because it's not a lot of black lawyers that do corporate or business work. Yeah. So most of the black lawyers I know do family law, criminal, personal injury, right? So it's not very many of us that do it. So I chalk that up to be, they didn't know what their options were. Right? Yeah. In terms of who was available to support them. And quite frankly, a lot of my clients don't even look like me. Mm-hmm. You know? So I have that too. So it works both ways. Mm-hmm. It works both ways. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I've seen it, for sure.
So when you say you're launching this brand in a couple weeks, so you'll still be partnering with the company. Yeah. And this is a side thing. Like, how do you manage your time then? Like, what does the schedule look like for you? Like, because you have multiple clients you're servicing. Mm-hmm. You got a family. You're part of the company. Partner that I know that's probably not light. So like, what is that even?
For me, it's really just a revenue, me being a lead magnet, basically, right? Because it's a big firm. Mm-hmm. It's over 200 lawyers. Oh, wow. And before...
How many partners are
there? 65.
Okay.
So before I had my own shop, so I controlled the messaging. Yeah. See, now I'm in somebody else's shop, and now they're controlling the messaging. Mm. And I need to be able to talk directly to my audience without them getting lost about how do I find Bobby in the midst of all this? So that's, to me, I got to cut through it. And the only way I know how to do it is to create this brand that people can come directly to me. Mm. And we'll still work through the firm. But that's just my way. And if I ever decided to open my own shop again, I'd take my brand and my ball home with me, and we gonna play ball that way.
Yeah, man. I think there's
generally where most of my clients get the most value out of me. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. That comes naturally. So when they get me as their attorney, they also technically get me as a business advisor, coach.
Because you think attorneys always think of people that's in the background just collecting checks and not doing that. He's looking over a contract. I'm like, bro, look, I'm paying you all this.
We on the front line, man. And so,
all of y'all on the front line, bro.
I know I am. I know I am. Yeah, I know I am. You crazy.
Because I mean, shoot, I think lawyers get a good and bad rap because, I watch TV, bro. Like back in the day, I'm like, and then I see the legal system sometimes, and even like, I'm like, hold up. Like, y'all get money for what? What y'all doing, bro?
Well, listen, it's just like doctors going to medical school. We went to law school. Yeah. We spent a lot of money for these degrees. I had to sit for the bar. Y'all gonna pay for it. Y'all gonna pay for this. Y'all gonna pay for this. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So, we got a rapid fire round, man. Yeah. If your younger self walked in this room, sat down in front of you and said, hey, I need some advice. Just like, knowing what you know now, what would you tell to him? And don't do the cop out and say, just do what you've been doing. Like,
no. I would say trust your dopeness, right? Trust, because there are times where I didn't trust what I knew, right? And sometimes the validation came from other places and things. But when that validation ain't there, you still got to push through and execute, right? So I would just say trust that, right? Because a lot of times you get into this place of, oh, this person got more followers or this person has these things, right? But I never really focused on building a brand on social media until now, right? So all of my work really was just offline and organic based on relationships and prior work. But when I look at it now, it's like, okay, now I gotta enter this social media space in order to service the people that I want to service.
Do you feel like your brand needs to be, how important is it the other, like the aesthetic, the followers and things of that nature on social for you? Or is it more so like, just having a profile that people can see the work?
Just seeing the work. Because before, representing some of the clients, a lot of them don't want to be on social media.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So.
Especially if you got a guy that's doing good business. Right. I don't want you to give more time. It's like, hold up. Right. Oh, I refer people. There's usually one guy. Like, you probably have other,
we do have associates. Yeah. And I have folks on the team that.
Okay. I was like, bro, like, I wouldn't want to refer him. Like, damn, I can't get in contact with him no more. I put my boy on.
No.
And I find my boy getting deals. I'm like, bro, like, my man ain't got me a deal. Like, what's up, Bible? Like, what's up?
I get it all the time. I get it all the time. So yeah, I'm always helping folks and I do what I can. I mean, some clients they only want to work with you. Mm-hmm. And that's a challenge. Cause if you pass them off, they feel like,
Cause I mean, you probably work with so many egos on so many different levels. Like,
yeah, but I'm fortunate. I'm in a position where I choose who I want to work with. Like, I know a lot of my colleagues, they take whoever come through the door. Uh-huh. That's just not. Like, if we don't vibe, if I don't feel like I can help you or you're not going to really listen to me, then you ain't finna keep me up all night.
Mm. And also, too, now here's some things people don't talk about, which is really important. When you start to really understand your value and understand your dopeness, how do you move in rooms with people that really don't?
That ain't my problem. Mm-hmm. And it took me a while to kind of get there, too, because I was too concerned about everybody liking me. Mm-hmm. But I got to a point to where it really didn't matter. I knew that I had to influence the room or the room would influence me. And so anytime I go into a room, I try to figure out who's doing the influencing and then those who I engage with. Cause I always say, like, bro, if you can't write the check, we can talk, but it's not really much you can do. Mm-hmm. And even when I'm negotiating, are you authorized to write the check? If not, like, we need the person who can make the decision. But I had to grow up. I had to grow into the person you see today. Cause I wasn't always as confident or like I was smart, but I wasn't always, my confidence didn't always follow. Mm-hmm. And so I had to grow into a lot of things and I'm still growing.
Do you can you forecast where your growth is, where your growth probably will be over the next 10 years? What areas?
I feel like, yeah, that's a hard question.
Yeah, that's a very
hard question.
I was like, it's kind of put on the guy.
I feel arrogant.
But yeah. That's LA. Like, cause I mean, but the thing is, I can answer, I'll be like, yeah, blah, but but then he's like, hold up, G. And I'll watch myself in 5 years, like, you didn't say that? How did you know that?
Oh man, bro, I might have to come back and, that was a dope question.
Yeah.
That's hard. I think the humbleness in me wants to say the right thing.
Yeah.
But I would just hope, I'm much more confident, than I am today. Cause it's just something it's just a feeling that you have to embrace.
And then, last question this round, when it's all said and done, when doors close on, unfortunately not even mortgage, but when the doors close on life, man, how do you want to be remembered?
Not to be cliche, but, like he led with his heart. He cared about people and he always did the right thing. Because we always got the decision to do right or wrong or what have you. But I just want people to know, like, yeah, he was a good dude and led with his heart, man. And that's important to me.
So rapid fire round, man. We got just a few rapid fire questions and then we wrap it up. All right.
Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice that you have never received?
Wow. Really never stopped dreaming, bro. I never really had anybody to encourage me to do a lot of dreaming. Mm-hmm. And so I would say that to somebody, right? Cause I never had anybody say that to me.
If you had the chance to add one habit and take away one habit, what would they be?
I think I'm pretty disciplined, but I would ratchet up my discipline.
Even more?
Even more. Yeah.
Like, bro, even more double? That's like God saying, yo, I want double the portion of Elijah. What?
Yeah,
like, bro.
Cause I have moments where I need to be more disciplined. Like even if I spend too much time on social media or whatever, like, bro, there's some revenue generating activity you could be doing right now. So like, do that. Mm-hmm. So that could be it. That adding that more discipline and again, taking away the habit of probably spending too much time on social media.
What is your, favorite book or movie and why?
Favorite book, actually, man, Kobe's book. I've read a lot of books apart from the Bible, but Kobe's book, was again.
Which one? The Mama Mentality?
Mama Mentality.
That junk is crazy. The bigger one?
With the bigger
It's
one.
like, it's so.
It's impactful, man. It's impactful, bro. So when I'm having moments of just whatever, I have certain chapters that I just go to
That is one of the most powerful books I've ever read.
Energize me. So that's the book, man.
But also too, it's sad because I feel like not everybody could, but God can do that to everybody. No, I don't know. I've been thinking like, there's very few people that have that mentality though. And people want to front though, they do. Like E.T. always said, everybody has the auspice of, we committed, we execution, analyze, study. But very few people do that.
You gotta be locked in. That's that discipline, man. He had it.
What's your biggest fear?
Poverty, man. Poverty. So we're gonna keep hustling.
And if you're the president of the United States, what's the first thing you would do?
End world hunger, man. Like, I grew up hungry sometimes, man, and I never want that for anybody.
So that's the last end of that, man. Everybody that comes on the show is a culture change agent, man. They're changing the culture. And everybody listening is changing the culture. Some are changing it from a positive, some are changing it negative. It's just the way of life. You're either going up or down. You're not really, even when you go in middle, there's no middle. If you could change one thing about society, most specifically African American culture, what would it be and why?
Acceptance. I feel like sometimes we're challenged with accepting realities that we may not agree with or things that people have told us we need to believe, right? You can believe more than one thing in terms of just societal norms. It doesn't have to be this one way. And so I would just acceptance and tolerance even of each other. Cause like you said about the one black experience you had and may have been a bad experience. But I go to white restaurants and other restaurants all the time and we keep going back. So I think that tolerance and acceptance is something I would certainly change.
So, Minority Trailblazer Nation, man, we want to thank y'all for listening. Thank everybody for giving over an hour of your time, man.
I appreciate it, man.
Thank you for giving over an hour of your time, man. Like I said, we really just connected like a couple weeks ago. And then we just jumped on the phone like, you got a second? Cause I was walking. I was like, you got a second?
We both walking.
Yeah. I was like, all right, there's something about immediate execution. Like you see something like, hey man, what's up, bro? Like, what do you do, bro? Like, all right, cool. Oh, I'm at Fort Lauderdale. Oh, you go to Church of Christ too? Okay, say less. You like a brother then. Like, no more.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for that, man. And where can people find out more information about you, what you're going to be offering?
So on Instagram, Facebook, you find me at the influencer ATTY. So at the influencer ATTY.
Okay, cool. So Minority Trailblazer Nation, make sure show the episode some love, man. If you know influencers or influencer, all that stuff, man, just reach out. And it's just a conversation. If it doesn't line up, it don't line up. But we have to get to the point. I'm challenging myself. Even if you feel like you're not ready or even whatever, have the conversation. Go to your bank. I know I've been there. I know your bank account negative or it's like you got less than $1,000 and they gonna look at you crazy when I talk to the banker. But go to the bank regardless, man. Let's have these conversations. Cause if you don't need it now, like you said, you may later in the future. If your vision that big, you're gonna need it. All right, man. So Trailblazer Nation, two things only. Number one, make sure you leave a review. 5 stars only. If it's not 5 stars, do not leave a review. And number 2, make sure you changing the freaking culture. Good night.